Yeah, so one piece of advice, if you have just taken on a role as group CEO at a public company late November, you've gone to all of your shareholders and your internal stakeholders and you've said, we're not going to do anything radically different, we're going to focus on the business, create stability, and it's going to be great. Then you go for breakfast with Brian late January and everything changes. Because yes, I don't know if I jumped out of my chair, I definitely slept on the table and I was very excited because I see this as a major opportunity for us to not just address the current, in some cases, dysfunctional areas within the existing ecosystem, but to reinvent how we approach it to do better from the get-go. And so that's what we've been doing. I don't think I myself or anyone in my company has worked this hard, this fast to get to an actual delivery and a live demo. And again, I hope this one will also work. I'm convinced it will. Thank you, Kelsey. But yeah, so just to give you a bit of background, the major implication when we were talking for me was, okay, so listen, we are going to see a world in which decision making around what media to purchase, not just based on the content, which is amazing and such a huge leap forward, but also based on all the other available parameters that go even far beyond what is currently available in the RTB protocol and extend to all of the different platforms and all of the different types of media. We're going to see models, we're going to see AI applications make decisions for us. Yes, we need to prompt them, we need to train them, but what we're talking about here is 1 trillion objects or tokens that are going to be pushed into this model. We can't keep control of everything. And so for me and for us over at Ebiquity, what we see here is the rise of agentic AI is amazing. It really is. And let me just elaborate a little bit, because I'll be the first one that uses the word agent, to explain what agentic AI means in this context. So a human can execute complex tasks, some more complex than others, and reason, learn, and improve autonomously. Great. But we cannot work extremely fast 24/7 unless you're called Brian O'Kelly. And we also cannot process vast amounts of data to the scale and the level that applications can, such as robotic process automation. It can really process a huge amount of data and continue to work based on that data. And it can execute quite complex tasks. But it can't reason and learn and improve autonomously. An LLM can do that and process vast amounts of data, but it currently is not able yet to execute complex tasks autonomously. This all comes together in agentic AI. And there's a term I want to introduce today that I think is going to be very important for everything that we all do when we engage with agentic AI, and that is instrumental convergence. If you've heard about the paperclip maximizer paradox, great. If you haven't, look it up afterwards. But instrumental convergence is the notion that autonomous, intelligent beings, when we give them a task, will do surprising, unexpected things, many of which can end up being quite harmful. In the essay about the paperclip maximizer example, what happens is an agent tasked with developing, manufacturing as many paperclips as possible, as cheaply as possible, ends up destroying the world, because that's the fastest way, the best way to get the maximum amount of paperclips produced as possible. So, what does this mean for us? If we're going to introduce agentic AI into a vast ecosystem that is worth over $1 trillion globally in terms of ad spend going into the ecosystem and funding quality journalism and all kinds of different media owners and platforms, if we're going to let loose, boy, I hope it won't do anything harmful as we go about it. But let's stick on that word hope, because esteemed Dr. Ayana Johnson earlier today said something that allows me, I think, to say this for the first time in my life on stage. Fuck hope. What's the strategy, right? How do we do what we can to make sure that we build in the guardrails that will will allow us to give the best effort possible to have it do these amazing things, like classify and understand the whole internet, make buying decisions based on that, but at the same time adhere to things like regulatory restrictions, just as an example, or brand policies, preferences around naming conventions, taxonomies, especially once we allow it to start setting up campaigns, optimizing campaigns, running reports for us. So I also invented a new product, different from Enmart, Bocco Cola. And Bocco Cola is a completely new, not inspired by any major brand company that has two drinks, a sugary drink and a zero sugar drink. And I'm not sure if everyone is familiar, but actually if you run a company which has both, in many markets you have very different restrictions when it comes to being able to advertise your product range. Whether it's your zero range, no sugar, whether it's your high sugar product range, high sugars, and therefore there are limitations to protect children, for example, from being influenced by advertising around unhealthy drinks. Now, I'm going to hand this back over to you because I think we're going to see a live demo of what it could mean if we bring in to the model and to the buying decisioning engine that Brian just showed earlier, if we're bringing in codified guardrails, which include things like regulatory frameworks across the globe, across all media channels, but also include preferences for the brand, as we've just seen, and ways in which the brand has identified and has codified they can deliver effective and responsible advertising, which is what we stand for at Ebiquity. We call this the ERA curriculum like a training manual or an educational set of guidelines, guardrails, etc., that can be used by any AI and will be natively available within the Scope3 platform from day one.
And how do you deliver these to an agency today on behalf of a brand?
So we have to build playbooks, which are essentially PDFs that get distributed via email to maybe 20% of agency staff worldwide, and they get read by maybe 1% of those 20% of people. And they get forgotten by 99% of the people that actually read them. It's not quite that bad, but it's inefficient, and it's also very static. You deliver that once, and then if you, 3 months later, regulatory frameworks change, you want to change that, guess what? You're not going to be able to do that at scale and make sure that everyone follows those new restrictions. So having that live and making sure that the models are being trained on and ingest into the prompt the live, full, comprehensive, non-conflictive and duplicative information and guardrails is a huge leap forward, enabled to make sure that brands can run all of their activity against great content that aligns with the brand values, but do so in a way that is compliant, is effective, and is responsible.
Yeah, I think it was funny. We did an event in London right after we had breakfast, and I was just chit-chatting with someone, and she said, "I'm so frustrated with Ebiquity." And I was like, "Why?" And she said, "Oh, I'm just so tired of going through these PDFs. They're really frustrating." And I really wanted to say, see you in 6 weeks, because we just had this amazing conversation. But think of this also from an audit perspective. This means that all of these issues that you might see after the fact, now we can actually catch before they go live and take all those people. We've talked about AI transforming jobs at agencies and creating efficiencies. So much of that is because of processes like this, where we don't have a way to inject this knowledge, this set of standards into the tools and processes we use. And so that's where this idea of an expert is so exciting for me. Before we set something up, let's ask the expert. Let's do it right. No human involvement really required. Now, what do you call your AI readable file format?
ARF.
I promised I would make a dog joke then. All right, so Kelsey, let's do this. Let's show, I didn't, as far as you know. Okay, so we're gonna make a new agent for Bocco Cola. Big deal, just signed. Bocco Cola, now an Ebiquity customer. Thank you for the great discount. I'm gonna go live with a new brand standards agent. And instead of going through the whole process we just saw, now I'm gonna add an expert. And so a couple different experts we have here. We're also partnering with Compliant, who many of you may be familiar with in the privacy and data governance space. We have more coming. But anyone who's working in this brand standards ecosystem, think about piracy, think about any of the other sort of compliance, responsibility, effectiveness, anything that an agency or a brand might think of as things you want to use as guardrails about how you spend money in advertising, we can plug in as an agent into this system and enforce all of these requirements up front. So let's choose a curriculum. So as we talked about, there's 2 different curriculums here. I actually need 2 different sets of trained models because these are completely different from a regulatory perspective. Let's do Coca-Cola. Install it. Got my agent running. And now let's go create an agent. And so we'll skip the calibration process. Let's just go and show what this looks like in training. So when I train a model, I now actually have, from Ebiquity, all of this, at least the initial version, filled in. And to Ruben's point, this will actually change over time. So what it actually did right there is it called out and asked the Ebiquity agent and said, what guidelines should I have when I put together this model? And I can ask it on a regular basis. It will learn. It will evolve. And so now I have all of these things. Obviously, these are all fake because, well, I think it's fake. Actually, at lunch, you might have some Coca-Cola. Who knows? You won't. But we can actually pull this in. And so every time we evolve this model, we can update it with all of those changes in regulatory or other guidelines. If the head of media says, today we're starting a new responsibility practice, it will be here. And so all of the things that we care about as a brand, integrity, efficiency, responsibility, safety, all of that can be immediately conveyed into my entire ecosystem of partners. So I think this is a pretty big step forward. We're talking not just about a new way of thinking about AI to classify content. We're talking about AI as a way to integrate other insights and rules into the ecosystem. Okay. Kelsey, thank you. We did it. If anyone from Scope3 is watching this, thank you. You guys were amazing. The engineering team killed it for this, and design and product. Thank you all so much. Well done. I'm going to close this out.
Yeah, I think the main thing on the next slide, if we have it, is this ERA curriculum is not just a concept. It's there, it's live, and we've integrated natively with Scope3. We're working with large brands to set up what their ERA curriculum means. Later this year, we look forward to releasing, together with Scope3, an agent that will actually be able to run through campaigns that are already set up, live, separately, manually, doesn't matter, and do the full check on those campaigns and help inform where there's deviations from the guardrails and preferences. So I want to thank the team over at Scope3 and at Ebiquity for all the hard work, and we're very excited about doing this together.
Awesome. Thank you, Ruben.